let's talk about clowncore and specifically dark aesthetics that take inspiration from the design details that we oftentimes see in clowns, gesture-inspired prints and garments, and the idea of circus life in general. What is our long-standing fascination with clowns, as well as the carnival and circus life that is integral to that? My name is Melissa, and in today's video, we are going to do a deep dive in the aesthetics of clown-inspired pieces and styles and how that pertains to the dark muse archetype system that I curated. Okay, really quick, let's talk about the origins of the clown, the jester, and this unique entertainer and how it transitioned into the modern day clown that we see today and take inspiration from, if that is a style that you are fascinated by. So it is speculated that the first iteration of this entertainer, clown, jester, but it is speculated that the origins of this entertainer dates back to Egypt. One of the most recognizable early clowns, though, that we see is the Harlequin, a figure who emerged in Italian comedy in the theater of 16th century. So the jester, or the jolly, the female variant, is a specific type of clown most associated with the Middle Ages, starting in Italy, and the jester moved all throughout Europe, influencing the theaters in Spain, Holland, Germany, Austria, England, and early France. Some interesting topics that are integral to the history of the clown and the jester that I'm not going to go over, but I think would be fascinating for you to look into, is Egypt's first clowns, sacred clowns, and the history of the tarot card, the Fool card. I'm not going to go over the deep history of the clown from year by year, but that is something that is fascinating to look into, and there's a lot of reading material that you can look over if that's something you're interested in. We're going to dissect the specific design aspects that curate the look of this recognizable clown and how it morphed into what we now call clowncore, and how it's becoming integral to some people's personal style and even becoming some people's signature style. So some of these definable traits that you would see in this definable modern day clown are stripes, the Harlequin diamond shaped print that we see on different garments, polka dots, pattern mixing in general, play with collars, so the ruffle collar, also known as the Elizabethan ruff, exaggerated silhouettes, shoes, and also face paint, but now how that has morphed into minimal makeup. So simplifying the diamond shape either just under the eyes or getting very illustrative with the shape of your lips and playing around with different color and also mix and matching. Okay, so how does clowncore relate to dark aesthetics and in particular my dark muse system? So if you're unfamiliar with my dark muse system, it is an archetype system that I made so that when I do dissect different styles and the history of it and why we like certain dark aesthetics, the dark muse archetype system consists of vampire, witch, siren, haunted doll, and fairy, and these are entities that you can look to for inspiration without focusing on a celebrity or influencer, and focusing more so on the method and motif that pertain to these archetypes. So when it comes to the dark muses, clowncore or dark clown aesthetics or gesture-inspired styles would fall under this perfect mix of haunted doll and fairy. So the reason why that is, clowncore is this perfect mix of nostalgic frilly details, like I mentioned in the defining qualities and design details, the ruffles, the collars, this fun and play that is associated with softer garment details is very haunted doll, especially if you're looking at like the vintage retro black and white styles of clowns, the historical looks of mimes. And then you also have the colorful gestures, the pattern mixing, the mix and match of pieces and garments, and this play with pattern and super vibrant saturated colors and cheeky humored elements that are associated in this style is very fairy. If you look at my dark muse system playlist, I go over a lot more in detail of what that means. But I'm gonna mainly focus on vampire, witch, and siren as tertiary dark muses. So starting off with vampire. So vampire at its core, this is the dark muse that is maximalist, luxurious, textural, tailored, unapologetic, and naturally sensual. So this is where you can incorporate more sensual details, maybe adding sheer elements. But I think what really can make a clown-inspired look more vampiric is adding in these bloodied reds into your makeup, or even in the collar, or just really going all out with these red, juicy details. I'm sorry I said juicy that bad, just looks like a juicy apple, so that's probably why I said that. So when it comes to witch is what I imagine this rundown clown, this maybe a clown from the Victorian ages, something very rugged, ripped hems. When it comes to witch as a dark muse, not literal witch, but if you dive deep into my dark muse archetype system, witch and warlock is the dark muse if you want to go for a more natural hued muse, shapeless, very imperfect. So when it comes to the witch clown aesthetic, you want to emphasize these natural fibers, what we often see in natural colored garments, whether it's the beiges, whites, or natural dyes. This is going to be a shapeless silhouette. You could play around with occult-inspired jewelry, but really focus on things that feel flowy, carefree, rugged, and emphasizing imperfections. The siren clown, I almost want to call as though you are literally the office siren, but you're incorporating clown-like elements into your style, or maybe the corporate clown. I don't know. But when it comes to siren as a dark muse, this is the dark muse if you like dark aesthetics that are a bit more minimal, a bit more subtle. So the siren clown is going to focus on sleek details. This is not going to be textural like the vampire clown. This is minimal, but it's still effortless. It's subtly sensual, and maybe minimal mime details. So for example, like I mentioned, Shop Neverwhere that I show here on my friend Chelsea is the perfect dress that feels like siren clown. Also incorporating different chrome details, that sleekness, and emphasizing taking some of these gesture prints and patterns, but making it a bit more subtle, like little Easter eggs that you have in your look. We cannot talk about signature style, at least in my videos, without talking about fragrance. I feel like when it comes to your own personal style, it extends to the perfume that you wear because it completes the look. It is a part of your identity, and what you choose to wear in terms of perfume, or even what you choose not to wear, says a lot about your signature look, and it completes the entire story of your style. So these are some carnival or clown-inspired perfumes that I would recommend. There are a plethora to choose from, but I narrowed it down to these 4. So first we have Circus Boudoir by Petals and Poison. It is scented of paper poppies, sweet dust, dense air, and steeped Darjeeling. So when it comes to Haunted Doll, the dark muse, and the perfumes that I curate for that dark muse, I oftentimes associate them with tea party scents, something very nostalgic, innocent, and very soft, and again, tea party like. So it's kind of perfect that Darjeeling is a important note to this perfume. But the idea of paper poppies, it's like this idea of childlike wonder mixed in with florals, and the dense air is very reminiscent of being inside of a carnival tent, like that dense air that you have with the crowds, the heat that you get from the performers and the lights, and it is something very, it paints a picture of being inside a retro circus. Cirque du Soleil actually has a perfume of their own, very along the lines of Haunted Doll mixed with fairy, but more fairy. There's something very sickeningly sweet, and that's just my opinion. I'm actually not a huge fan of super sweet scents, but I do have friends who are huge gourmand fans who love the smell of cotton candy, candied apples, And there is a popcorn note in this perfume that I think makes it super unique to Cirque du Soleil's storytelling of what they wanted to convey in this perfume. I will say the candied apple scent in this is very, very close to a caramel apple that I've ever smelled. So Annabelle's Birthday Cake by Marisa Zappas is definitely more so of, in my opinion, like the 1950s story of the clown that you invite to a kid's birthday. You're in a mid-century home. The reason why I say that is because it has this unique scent of candied rose petals, frosting on a fluffy white cake, and balloons. Like there is this staticky, almost, and I don't want this to sound bad, but like synthetic smell of balloons. It's very nostalgic. It's interesting. I find that almost every perfume brand has a unique DNA that you can tell, like, this is an Alchemia perfume, or you can tell this is a Heretic perfume. And it's not to say that their perfumes smell the same, but there is what those who do like perfume reviews or perfumers that I've heard, they call it that certain brands just have a DNA, and it's probably because it's probably the ingredients that they source from. But Alchemia has what I feel like is like an earthier DNA. So, but the notes are similar to Cirque du Soleil in a way. Cotton candy, the hot kettle corn, but there's also freshly baked funnel cakes, candied apples, and saltwater taffy. And I feel like Alchemia actually is one of those perfume brands that have such a unique way of storytelling. And when you finally do smell their scents, there's something unexpected about it. And I definitely recommend Alchemia if you are into venturing into some different indie perfume brands. Okay, so let's do a deep dive into why certain patterns are specifically associated with the clown aesthetic and clowncore. Let's talk about stripes. So when it comes to stripes, in this article, it is stated that stripes have an interesting history, and it started in the Middle Ages, where striped pants were far from the mere aesthetic choice. They were considered a social stigma, and the pattern was associated with transgression, dishonesty, deviation from social order. So historically, stripes were deemed as this stepping away from societal norms, and in many ways was considered a uniform for those who were considered outside of society. So speaking of patterns and patterns associated with clowncore and jester-inspired styles, we have to talk about Shop Neverwhere by the talented Samantha. So I'm actually wearing a Shop Neverwhere dress, and she actually has what many design houses would call a hero print. And it's a print that is very associated with a certain brand, and the Harlequin diamond-shaped print has now become very recognizable as something as we see as a hero print for Samantha's brand, Shop Neverwhere. Kind of like how plaids and the tartans are now associated with Vivienne Westwood. So when it comes to the Harlequin print, because it is such an integral part of Samantha's brand, she actually did a historical video of the history of the diamond-shaped print, which I'm going to show here.
Print. The Harlequin, or the Arlecchino, was first introduced in Italy during the 1600s for the Commedia dell'arte productions. He wore multicolored, stitched-together elongated diamonds to signify that he was a servant character. So it's supposed to look like patchwork. Anything he could find, he would stitch together an outfit. His character was funny, mischievous, a trickster, super agile, and often outwitted his enemies. As time went on, the Harlequin would only explode in popularity. Paintings, Halloween costumes, and of course, the print had a massive impact on fashion. The print would have a huge explosion in the 50s when photographer Irving Penn would photograph Lisa von Sagerves in this beautiful Harlequin print dress by Jerry Parnas. We would continue to see the print in the 1960s, the 70s.
And if you want to watch her whole historical take on that, definitely go to her profile. I think she posted it on Instagram and TikTok if you want to see the whole thing. But it is interesting how the Harlequin print, how it started and how it transitioned from this literal patchwork detail of mixing and matching these different fabrications into a recognizable print that we associate with this style. So because it is very apparent, and she has made it very clear that her design inspiration does come from circus life, the prints, patterns, and styles of clowns and jesters. I had to ask Samantha, why is the idea of this clown aesthetic important to you? So Samantha told me that I am a comic book fan. One day while watching Batman the Animated Series, and the beautiful, mischievous Harley Quinn popped up on my screen. She was a troublemaker, a trickster, and had a New York accent just like me. And that's when my love affair with the Harlequin and all things clown started. That's something that I definitely feel like is important to note, that when it comes to style, prints, patterns, or dressing in a certain way and styling it in a certain formulaic matter, or however you want to call it, when it dates back to something that is integral to either your childhood or a pivotal point in your life, that's when it truly does become your personal style and can become a signature style where you're recognizable for it, because the roots for your love for that look and in general runs deep. Samantha actually does have a September drop coming out, and her hero prints, the Harlequin Diamond, will definitely be on the martini dress. I am most likely getting the spiderweb dress and the slip dress that also has the diamond cutout in it. So one of the easiest ways to incorporate the clown aesthetics into your own personal style, or what you will then create to be your signature style, is the clown makeup. So you can wear all the prints and patterns, or you can wear something a bit more subdued, but if you have clown makeup or clown inspired makeup, it's the more evident way of honoring the idea of clowncore. Fascinating is that you can actually copyright your clown face, or those in the clown profession do copyright their face, and you paint it on an egg. And this has been going on since the 1940s, and it was a way of registering your unique makeup so that no other clown can copy your makeup. There's also a modern day performer or modern day clown who states that the iteration and symbolism that goes into clown makeup is to essentially manifest the kind of personality you have as a clown, as an entertainer. So whether you're a sad clown, you emphasize in your lips that shape with your mouth, or if you're an overly giddy, happy clown, you exaggerate it as well. Same thing with the eyes, the eye makeup. So you can go about it in a way with the diamond shape that we see oftentimes in modern day iterations of the makeup, or with your eyebrows. But I also think that would be very fascinating to go into, of like how to symbolically incorporate it into your makeup to exaggerate and emphasize parts of your personality. So what is our fascination and our long-standing intrigue that comes from the clown? Whether you like the clown, or you have the phobia of clowns, or you actually are inspired by the idea of all the design elements that are associated with clowns and jesters, where does this all come from, and why do we have this fascination with the clown? So it's kind of hard to say for every single person, but in general as a society, because the entity of the clown is constantly being associated with our childhood, whether it's hiring a clown for your birthday, or clowns, or the entity of this entertainer being shown in movies. Also, the circus is not something that is of bygone era. It is still a profession that you can be a part of the circus today. And one of the most well-known form of entertainers that we see today is Cirque du Soleil. I grew up in Vegas, so my idea of the clown and my personal fascination with the idea of circus life in general comes from the casino circus. My grandparents, my mom's side, my grandparents actually met at Circus working there. My grandpa was the pit boss, and my grandma was a blackjack dealer. And so growing up, I went to Circus quite often. I would go to Midway to play carnival games, get prizes, and it was always just like a fun little thing to do, especially whenever people would come visit us in Vegas. We would go to Circus, take them to Midway, or take them to Adventure Dome. I love Cirque du Soleil. It is one of the most beautiful performances that I have ever seen in my life. I have seen Le Rêve twice, and I saw Ka, and it is an art form of what these entertainers can do, and the world that they create and the costumes are so inspiring and otherworldly, and it creates this fantastical world that some of us can't even imagine. And I feel like this beautiful world that the circus life creates is definitely integral to our love or fascination with clowncore or anything inspired by it. In a Psychology Today article, they quote Thomas More, an author, that carnivals and circuses attract that element in the psyche that crave symbolic and dreamlike experiences. It is a powerful escape, a fantasy, and it explains that many of us are inspired by this dream world that the circus and carnivals tend to curate. I also feel like every generation has an association with clowns and circus life. So whether it was the medieval ages of the jesters and how it eventually transitioned into the time of Piero, and how we also have the 1920s and 1930s iteration of the clown. I feel like also for me and those in my generation also have like the 2000s unique nostalgia of clown and circus inspired movies, such as the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, Big Fish, and then there's also some clown circus themes that are shown in Paprika, which is my favorite movie and one of my favorite animes. So I feel like no matter what generation you're from, there is going to be some form of unique association that you have that you associate with clowns and circus life. I feel like this is also backed up with the fact that we see a lot of clown and carnival inspired designs in haute couture that we see on runway. John Galliano's Dior runway shows in the 90s have taken inspiration from clown inspired design elements actually several times. I have two noted here. Vivienne Westwood also took inspiration from clown and carnival inspired pieces. And we also have modern day labels and brands such as Sanitary's Shop Neverwhere, Mischief Made, Petals and Poison have also done not exactly clown iterations, but pieces of loud and vibrant prints and patterns that could be styled in a way that caters to those who love circus themed pieces. My friend Samantha of Samantha the Bat has a long-standing love for clowncore aesthetics, but it runs deep. So she states that the idea of the human body as a medium of art and a spectacle in itself, which you'll see in many circus professions, is something that I hold a lot of respect for. I also admire the dedication to constantly pushing physical limits to see what the human body is capable of for the sake of performance art. As I also talked about in the idea of Cirque du Soleil and how it is an art form. Samantha states that I grew up wanting to join Cirque du Soleil as a contortionist or an acrobat when I was little, since I was 15 years competing in gymnastics. I later was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and contortionism made hypermobility feel like a form of art when viewed through the lens of circus arts rather than just a disability. Circuses in general became a bit of an obsession for me, which then bled into how I style myself and the makeup I like to wear. It's fascinating to me that human nature historically is fascinated by the strange, and that people will spend thousands of dollars to be perplexed by those who otherwise would be labeled weird or socially outcasted. So Samantha has done very evident makeup inspired by the traditional clown makeup that we know and are familiar with. But it is very fascinating and also heartwarming to know that this love for this style is more than just aesthetically what is visually pleasing. Okay, so emphasizing on the idea of how clowncore or clown-inspired design elements becomes your signature style. At the end of the day, signature style is an extension of your identity. It is just a more external expression of that. And another way to incorporate this is in tattoos. Whether you're getting a tattoo for a deep and meaningful reason or for aesthetic purposes, it's still going to be a part of your identity and an extension of it because it is a very evident way of expressing yourself. Gristle Tattoo did a Jester-inspired tattoo and mentioned the meaning behind it of what the client wanted. It represented the animalization of the human figure. The upper body is human while the lower body becomes animal. Above are the social rules and expectations, and below are the desire, instinct, and chaos. There are actually many people who want a clown tattoo, and whether it's for aesthetic reasons, oftentimes it's because it's associated with what the clown or jester represents. It is an outcast of society. It also represents exaggerated emotions. It represents the theater and being an entertainer. There are many reasons why anyone would get a clown tattoo, but oftentimes it is associated with what the clown and jester represent. Okay, so speaking of those who are not fans of clowns, no judgment here, but having a fear of clowns is actually very valid, and like I always mention in my videos, it all comes from a game of association. So the idea of clowns being associated with horror and there being a fear of clowns, of course, is unique to every person. It is stated in Time magazine that it was in the 1980s where the clown essentially turned scary or became associated with horror when there were reported crimes of the killer clown, John Wayne Gacy. This was followed by different popular horror fiction, Steven Spielberg's 1982 Poltergeist, and Stephen King's 1986 novel, It. I don't think that the fear of clowns only started in the 1980s. The fear of anything, obviously, is timeless. I think widespread John Wayne Gacy enhanced that, and that's probably when the fear of clowns became a bit more widespread. But I'm sure there were people who were scared of clowns even prior to. If you watched this entire thing, thank you so much. Patreon members have a PDF of all my mood boards on the Patreon website and app. I hope you have a great week, and until next time, bye.